What's going on, everybody? This is John J Gaming on the mic here, coming at you with a brand new episode of the FCS Dynasty here on NCAA 2006. And also going to be featuring that NCAA Next mod as we not only march through the FCS regular season, but dare I say it, we might get through the rest of the regular season here in this episode. And to top that all off, we might have a little bit of a preview of the conference championship games if we do make it through the rest of the regular season. Depends on what happens around the FCS. Depends on what games come up that, we want to come out here and show. So, guys, I hope you're excited about this episode of FCS Dynasty Football. And if you are, make sure you go ahead and smack that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you do happen to be brand new to the channel. Let's go ahead and dive right into this ball game, and let's go jump right into the action. So let's go ahead and jump right into the action with a pair of week 11 top 25 matchups. We come over to the Big Sky first with a top 20 game between the Sacramento State Hornets and the Portland State Vikings. Both teams very much in the hunt for the Big Sky Conference Championship, but since we're getting quite a few top 25 games in this episode, we're going to get a very clear picture of who we think is actually going to win the whole damn thing. As Paris Hodge is getting highlighted for today's game, he's been a solid running back for the Hornets, and they are here on the goal line here on this first and goal. No scoring yet. We'll see if Sacramento State can finally break that as Jack Quinn calls some quick audibles. They will hand it off to Paris Hodge, who fights his way into the end zone. Touchdown Hornets, and Sacramento State, sure enough, will get itself on the scoreboard. And they'll eventually take a 10-0 lead into the half, where Jack Quinn starts to throw some serious strikes. He's having himself a ball game here today as Jack Quinn gives Sacramento State a 17-0 lead. This was also the point where we saw Kyle Hardy get himself hurt, so Jonathan Ludwig had to come in and play in the game. We'll see if Ludwig is able to do much of anything, and unfortunately he does do something, just not for Portland State. He throws an interception. Sacramento State is going to be in their own territory, deep in Portland State territory, matter of fact, and they'll have a chance to add on to this lead. And even though they'll go 3 and out, they got a pretty good kicker in Robert Williams, 8 for 9 on the season. Got a 27-yard field goal that he needs to lace through, and sure enough he does. He's a very good kicker for Sacramento State. And that now makes it a 20-0 lead. But then 3 minutes left in this game, still down by 23. You would think Portland State would just give up and quit, but they don't give up. They will get a touchdown here, finally break the goose egg that they had on the scoreboard, even get themselves a 2-point conversion. That was Ryan Otis that also got the touchdown run there as well. And then deep downfield, Ryan Otis is going to get a second touchdown. So all of a sudden, this is a very intriguing game that we got going on, especially if Portland State can go ahead, if they can get this onside recovery, and it looks like they will not. So the comeback bid, it was an incredible comeback attempt by the Vikings. They tried to roar back, but the Hornets just had a little bit too much sting. So Sacramento State will end up winning this game 23-16, a great win on the road. As now we jump into the other top 25 matchup, but we go over to the Big 12 for this one. Chattanooga, the number 10 team in the nation, taking on the Alabama State Hornets. Alabama State ranked number 22 in the country, having a nice season, but a win here would be a very big statement win as Alabama State searching for that first FCS playoff appearance. They have not been to the FCS playoffs yet this year, but they'll have to take on a very good receiving core from Chattanooga, led by Mike Thomas. He's the main squeeze of this offense. And we'll jump right into this game as well, as Sean Brown's actually going to get it off to one of his receivers, who cuts upfield. How does he Houdini his way out of this? I have no idea, but he's going to be high-stepping his way into the end zone, and rightfully so. Wow. That turned to an 84-yard touchdown pass. Really did not see that one coming at all. And now Alabama State's down 7-0 as the Hornets will look to respond back, but the quarterback puts the ball on the ground in Chattanooga. If they're going to recover the fumble, and they'll have it inside the red zone, or they'll try to hit this 23-yard field goal. But you could really tell that Alabama State's crowd, they are really amped up right now. And it's going to be really important, you know, continue to get points on the board just like that. Control the crowd, as it's now 10-0. And now, looking for Alston, deep downfield, got a man! That's Desmond Maxey, who puts Alabama State on the board before the half. And the Hornets are only down by 6. But let's go ahead and jump into that second half of action as Alabama State tries to take it out of the end zone. But there's a scramble for the football, multiple fumbles. And it looks like Chattanooga will end up recovering said fumbles, but cannot fully take advantage though, as they will send out their field goal unit yet again. This one from 37 yards out. We'll see if he can lace it through here in the opening moments of the second half. And sure enough, that kick is going to go through. So in spite of going 3 and out on this drive as well, Chattanooga will go ahead and make this a 2-possession game. So now Alston is in the shotgun formation. He's the quarterback for the Alabama State Hornets. He will have some time to work with. Throws down the left-hand side, and it looks like it's caught. It's caught by Desmond Maxey. The custom high stepping his way into the end zone. Touchdown Hornets. And Alabama State right back into the game after an 84-yard touchdown. And late in the third quarter, Alston's going to throw his third touchdown pass of the day. And that will give Alabama State their first lead of the day. They did not get the extra point or the 2-point conversion. So only up by 4 points. But looks like Alabama State is on the verge of really taking control of this game. Getting a fumble recovery on the next drive. As Alston again looking to respond. Fires over the middle. Finds a receiver who's going to run his way into the end zone. That's another touchdown for Alabama State. And the Hornets now with a 27-16 lead and desperately needing this 4th down conversion. It's Brown under center, power I formation, but throws right into the hands of an Alabama State corner. That's Michael Gibbs with a critical interception late in the game. And this field goal, if getting through, will spice things up, and that will seal the deal for the Alabama State Hornets. They will pull off a stunning victory over the Chattanooga MOCS, handing them only their second loss of the season. A big win for them. But over the course of week number 11, there were other top 25 teams that did end up playing. For example, we have Southeast Missouri State taking down Murray State 31-17. As Redhawks are undefeated, led by their blistering running game. As for the Catamounts, they were actually quite tested against Alabama A&M, nearly pulling off the upset, but the Catamounts find a way to win 41-36, as Marcus Johnson had multiple touchdowns, and the Catamounts are on a 13-game winning streak. As for James Madison, they had no trouble dispatching Norfolk State, as the Dukes win 44-3. Himes Highland, who's one of your guys' customs, by the way, ends up with 5 total touchdowns on the day. As for the Akron Zips, they're actually in a very defensive struggle against Ball State, as the Zips win 13-6. They're now 7-2 on the season. Southeast Missouri State, however, continues to roll as they're on a 6-game winning streak now, beating the Citadel 35-21. Marcus Garrett, another custom, had over 200 yards receiving, as well as 2 touchdown passes. However, a huge upset developing in the Big Sky Conference as Weber State not only beating North Dakota State, but actually doing it pretty convincingly. Wildcats win 37-20 in a very shocking loss for the Bison. However, Northern Arizona will not fall under that same trap as they go on the road to take down Eastern Washington. The Lumberjacks win 37-23 as Tyrone Wolf threw for 2 touchdowns and had over 330 yards passing. Grambling State is another team looking for their first FCS playoff appearance. They're now at 7-3 thanks to a 40-10 win over Jackson State. Their defense, though, was electric in this game as it was only 10-7 at the half, So in the meantime, they held it down today. As for the New Hampshire Wildcats, they remain undefeated on the season, beating Bethune-Cookman 42-20. Ernie Little was the star of the show, though, with 5 total touchdowns. New Mexico State also taking care of its business in conference play, taking down the St. Thomas Tommies 38-28, as New Mexico State is now at 8-1 and in a prime spot to make the playoffs. As for Nicholls State, however, they will not be so lucky as they lose to the Furman Paladins 22-14, as Nicholls State loses their 3rd game of the season. Crenshaw, your player of the game, had 83 yards and a touchdown. Delaware, however, is also going to remain undefeated, one of the more dominant teams in the country after blowing out North Carolina A&T. The Blue Hens winning 51-7 gets them to 9-0 on the season. As for Central Michigan, they continue their work through the MAC Conference as they beat the Southern Illinois Salukis 42-14. The Chippewas sitting at 7-1. Georgia Southern also doing its work as well as they take down Wofford 34-10 as the Eagles sit at number 12 in the country. Mark Collins was great in this game with over 300 total yards of offense. As for UNLV, they just entered the top 25 and it looks like they'll be staying there for a little bit, beating South Dakota 21-16 to get to 7-2 on the season. As for North Texas, they also recently arrived in the top 25 and they take down the Raging Cajuns 27-21 in order to get to 7-2. Now the Montana Grizzlies also handling their business in the Big Sky. They take down North Dakota 45-28 as Davis flew all over the field for the Grizzlies, having 15 tackles, an interception, a forced fumble. Shoot, he even threw in a defensive touchdown too. Now, this was actually the Mountain West Championship game, the de facto championship game, and San Diego State, they take care of business against the Denver Pioneers. The Aztecs winning 49-30, and they'll likely win the automatic bid for the Mountain West Conference this year. Eastern Michigan, meanwhile, taking things out on Western Michigan, their rivals, as EMU gets to 8-0 after a 31-26 victory. As for other games that happened in week number 11 that are a little bit on that noteworthy side, how about Northern Iowa taking things out on UMKC? The Panthers winning 38-7 to get to 4-5. Utah State, meanwhile, does get themselves into the top 25 as the Aggies win 24-7. Utah State at 8-2, win one more game, and you can get a nice little spot there in the FCS playoffs. As for the Ohio Bobcats, they blow out Western Illinois 48-7 as the Ohio Bobcats putting together a solid season 2. They're now at 6-3. SMU, however, getting to 7-3 after a 48-14 win over Hofstra, a nice win in conference play. Texas Southern, however, even though they have disappointed this season, they do at least get one really good win against Mississippi Valley State. They win 48-14 to get back to 500. But San Diego State was not the only team this week to punch their ticket into the FCS playoffs, as the Yale Bulldogs have been incredible over the course of this season. They're undefeated in the Ivy League, and with everyone else with multiple losses, Yale is also the automatic qualifier for the Ivy League. And the question is now for them, how high of a seed can they receive? So in week number 12, we only had one top 25 matchup, and it once again features the Sacramento State Hornets coming off that big win against Portland State on the road. Can they come back home and defend their turf against a very good Montana football team themselves, who does come in ranked number 12 in the country? And this Montana squad led by Jamison Skinner, who is really starting to figure things out here at the FCS level. It was a little bit rocky to start his college career, but he's able to, start figuring things out here a little bit, and we'll see if he can lead a big-time drive here late in the first half. Skinner throws to the left-hand side, finds a receiver down the sideline, and Montana will score yet again. So they'll take a 10-0 lead into the half, but Jack Quinn will look to respond quickly, though, as Quinn will drop back, throw to the left-hand side. He'll find his receiver, and Sacramento State will pull it to just 3 points and even have a chance to send this thing into overtime. 42-yard field goal is no good. In Montana, they come out, they're gonna win the game 10-7. Very defensive-minded game as well, but the Montana Grizzlies do find a way to come out on top, beating Sacramento State on the road. But that was the only top 25 game that happened over the course of week number 12, but not the only top 25 team that played. James Madison, for example, they took on the Howard Bison and won 28-24, led by their stifling defense, able to hold it down when it was not a great offensive day. As for the Catamounts, they beat Mississippi Valley State 38-31. In spite of 24 unanswered points from the Delta Devils, it was simply not enough. Their backup quarterback came into the game for that. However, we have a huge upset that happens in week number 12 as Delaware loses their first game of the season. They lose to the Rattlers of Florida A&M, and I'm sure that they would have stormed the field if the game allowed it. Hopefully it's in EA college football. As for Southeast Missouri State, they are on the verge of an undefeated regular season, winning 42-17 against the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. Thomas More led the day with 5 total touchdowns between passing and running. As for Georgia Southern, we have another shocking upset. Down goes a top 10 team as they lose to Texas State 28-10. Abington, the running back for the Bobcats, went for over 100 yards on the ground and almost 100 yards receiving too. As for UNLV, they beat the Denver Pioneers 35-28 in order to get to 8-2, and that means that the Rebels are also on a 5-game winning streak. Meanwhile, Eastern Michigan continued its unbeaten season, taking down the Ball State Cardinals 36-10 in MAC action. As for the Utah State Aggies, they will finish their regular season 9-2 after a 35-23 win over the St. Thomas Tommies. North Texas, meanwhile, almost done with its regular season as they win against Florida Atlantic 32-27. The Mean Green are now 8-2 on the season. Meanwhile, Northern Arizona continues its great season that they're having, winning 34-12 against Weber State. Tyrone Wolf goes off for over 380 yards passing, as well as 4 touchdown passes. However, North Dakota State answers back with a 47-31 win against Eastern Washington. St. Thomas with the best game of his career too, with 370 yards passing and 5 touchdowns. However, the Alcorn State Braves want to make a serious case for an FCS playoff spot, taking down Alabama State 36-29. Thomas of the Braves has 250 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns too. Meanwhile, San Jose State is able to pull the upset against New Mexico State 41-31, and that does mean that the Spartans, they should be getting that automatic bid from the WAC conference. However, Southeast Louisiana State's their winning streak, their 6-game winning streak, does come to an end. They lose to the Elon Phoenix 28-23 as Eric Booth goes for 3 total touchdowns in this game. As for San Diego State, they will finish the regular season undefeated as they finish up beating UMKC 47-17, looking to get one of the top 8 first-round byes in the FCS playoffs. However, Central Michigan has handed a pretty major blow as they lose to Western Michigan 44-23 as the Broncos score a big win in MAC play. Chattanooga, however, does not fall under that same track as the MOCS win 32-6 over the Southern Jaguars. Mike Thomas goes for 177 yards and 2 touchdown receptions. In other news, the Grambling State Tigers are looking like a team that could be going to the playoffs this year. They beat Arkansas Pine Bluff 42-35 to finish their regular season at 8-3. Justin Moore of Grambling State has 173 yards and 3 receiving touchdowns. As for Northwestern State, they're also looking to be in pretty good shape as well as they beat the Mountaineers 34-13. Davis, one of the receivers on the Demon squad, had 250 reception yards and 2 touchdowns on the day. As for Portland State, they beat Montana State 42-21 as Mohammed carried the rock quite a bit in the action of Chase Sherman. However, a big upset developing late in the Ohio Valley Conference. Eastern Kentucky pulling a stunner, winning 40-37 against the Skyhawks. Everett was the key in this one with a game-winning touchdown in overtime. And the last top 25 team that played was the New Hampshire Wildcats, and they handled business against the Hampton Pirates. New Hampshire wins 49-23 as Hopkins has an incredible 17 receptions in the game, including 219 reception yards and 5 touchdowns. He was unstoppable. But after the dust settles here on week number 12, we do have, I believe it is our last AQ that's going to be handed out during the course of the regular season. We still have the conference championships to go and settle the other AQ bids, but Southeast Missouri State, they will get that automatic bid. They have a 2-game lead over both Eastern Kentucky, who got themselves ranked, by the way, and Tennessee Martin. They took each other out. So Southeast Missouri State, they're going to be 7-0 on this season, and that will mean that they will automatically get a berth into the FCS playoffs. But in week number 13, we once again see the Montana Grizzlies featured in a top 25 matchup, except this time they are at home taking on the Portland State Vikings, as Montana is one of those teams that are in the hunt to win that Pac-10 championship at the end of the season. However, they need this win here if they want to remain in that hunt desperately, as Jamison Skinner had a very solid game. Didn't put the eye-popping numbers up, but did a good enough job leading that offense, was a good game manager. We'll see if he can have that type of performance yet again today. Lead Montana to victory, but Kyle Hardy might have some other things in mind. He's going to throw a nice strike and let his receiver do the rest. He'll give Portland State the early 7-0 lead. And Kyle Hardy, man, today he certainly brought it, and so did his receivers. Ryan Otis able to find the end zone there too. Already 2 touchdowns for Kyle Hardy. And it looks like in the second half, the Vikings are taking over. Hardy looking towards the middle of the field, and that's a big-time grab for Ryan Otis. Otis out here coming with the heat. That's his second touchdown grab of the day, giving Kyle Hardy 3 touchdown passes. And how about this effort right here from the Sherman tank, running through multiple guys and then finding his way into the end zone too. That is just world-class effort there, as Portland State trying to get back into the FCS playoffs. And you want to talk about some icing on the cake? Well, they also managed to get a safety too. So a little bit of a surprise considering Montana's coming off of a big win. They come out flat in this one, losing big to Portland State. 30-0 is the final score. The Vikings got that shutout that they're looking for. Meanwhile, over in the opposite side of the country, we have a key conference matchup over in the SEC. Southeast Louisiana comes in ranked number 25 in the country. They will take on Northwestern State, who is ranked in the top 10. But that top 25 matchup, that's not why this is important. Both teams are in the hunt to go to the conference championship, and the winner of this game will be going to that conference championship to fight for that automatic bid. So Southeast Louisiana, they desperately need this win. They're kind of in that bubble spot right now. If they were to be in that at-large pool, this win would really help them out right now. We'll see if Glover can help their causes, or he's just going to throw an interception. Throws one to Zeiger, who gets his 3rd interception of the season. So now Jeremiah Hoodie and company comes out, got some very good field position, as Hoodie throws to the left-hand side. It's caught, and his receiver fights his way into the end zone, and Northwestern State will strike first in this critical matchup, giving the Demons a 7-0 lead. Later on in the first quarter, Glover's got a nice drive going. However, his running back is going to fumble the football. Last thing that you want to do is that right there. And now a key turnover could give Northwestern State an even bigger lead. 2nd and goal from the 2-yard line. Several plays later, Hoodie looking. He's got a lot of time to work with. Finds a man in the back of the end zone. It's the tight end McCoy. And that will give the Demons a 14-0 lead. As now, second quarter of action, Jeremiah Hoodie really showing that he came with the heat today. Hoodie going to the left-hand side, but he was targeting his backup tight end, who might be a converted offensive lineman. He does wear number 78. Very weird to see that, but Glover's going to help take advantage of that. He will hand it off to the tailback, and it's right back to a one-score lead, except Jeremiah Hoodie, he'll score another touchdown pass for the Demons right before we go into the halftime locker room, and that's even with somebody offside. Southeast Louisiana completely falling asleep at the wheel there. So the Demons with a 21-7 lead in the halftime locker room, and Hoodie looking to get his guys in to the conference championship, trying to set up the screen. He's already got one touchdown today. Make that two, as nobody else is on the screen. Northwestern State with a dynamic performance today, taking a 31-7 lead into the fourth quarter. And then Jeremiah Hoodie, he'll provide the dagger, getting it out to the custom Bo Arias for a 21-yard touchdown. Southeast Louisiana did not play with that fire that they needed to play with, and they lose big 38-7 in this one. But even this late in the season, though, we still have some shockers. How about Western Carolina here in week number 13? They take their first loss of the season in overtime to Prairie View A&M. It's their first loss of the season as Prairie View stuns the Catamounts 37-34. In addition, Georgia Southern wins their matchup against Florida A&M 37-21, as Collins had another great day today, throwing for 300 yards and 3 touchdown passes. The Eagles win 37-21. As for Youngstown State, they will end the regular season undefeated, beating Youngstown State in their regular season finale 45-6. It was an absolute statement game for the Redhawks. As for Akron, they win a close one against the Ohio Bobcats 42-39. Akron on a 5-game winning streak as they look to enter the top 10. As for Delaware, they'll finish the regular season strong, winning 24-10 against Texas State. The Blue Hens with a 10-1 record, as Paris McPherson with another monster performance. Meanwhile, for Northern Arizona, they'll finish the season 9-2 after a 38-28 victory over the Montana State Bobcats. Tyrone Wolf was on fire, throwing for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. Meanwhile, North Dakota State gets their winning streak back going again as they win 45-13 against their rivals from the University of North Dakota. Their defense was the big story, though, holding them to 0 first-half points. As for the Skyhawks, they go 8-2 after a 27-10 victory over the Sanford Bulldogs, as Tennessee Martin seeks to get back into the FCS playoffs with their 8th win of the season. Meanwhile, Eastern Kentucky seems like a team that's peaking at the right time, beating Western Kentucky 28-27. This could seal Eastern Kentucky's fate in terms of getting into the playoffs as an at-large bid. Meanwhile, the Chippewas look to get back on track as they beat Ball State 45-17. They're now 8-2 and very much in that at-large conversation as well. However, one team that will not have to worry about the at-large is Eastern Michigan. They're undefeated at 10-0 after a 41-38 win over the Buffalo Bulls in MAC play. But a big game here as New Mexico State beats Utah State 35-31. This is New Mexico State's 9th win of the season, but will it be enough to get into the top 25 once again? But how about this, the biggest shocker that we have seen yet? Norfolk State with nothing to play for. They take down the #1 team in FCS football 38-17 as the Spartans, led by Jet Peterson, throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in a historic day for the program. Also going down in the top 25 ranks is Sacramento State, as they're now on a 2-game losing streak, losing to Weber State 30-27 as Overstreet catches 2 touchdown passes in the big win. UNLV also handles its business as they take down the Omaha Mavericks 44-17, as the Rebels will finish 9-2 here in the regular season. But how about the Yale Bulldogs, who get into the top 25, and they will stay there for the time being, winning 45-38 against Dartmouth in the Ivy League. they already have the automatic bid, but look to climb in the top 25 rankings in order to get that higher seed in the FCS playoffs. As for Chattanooga, they lose their third game of the season and will end the regular season at 8-3 after a 33-24 loss to Arkansas Pine Bluff. Jacob Coolbeans came in to play quarterback and played admirably. He had 340 yards in the win. And the last top 25 team to play in week number 13 is Grambling State. They win against Alcorn State 28-21. Grambling State looking good to get into the FCS playoffs as they're now 9-3 on the season. In other news though, we do see McNeese State jump back into the top 25. They're now ranked number 25 in the country after a 33-28 win over McNeese State. And we also see San Jose State end their regular season in the top 25, and they do so by beating Idaho in WAC play 45-33. But we also get some news on an automatic bid being handed out, and it looks like it's going to be North Dakota State. Now, North Dakota State in the Big Sky Conference, they do have the same conference record as Northern Arizona, except the difference between Northern Arizona and North Dakota State is that these two teams, they actually did play each other back in week number 7, and the Bison did come out on top, winning 38-26 in that game. So they do have the tiebreaker, and because of that, the Bison will get that automatic bid from the Big Sky Conference. But now we get ourselves to the last two top 25 matchups that we have left in the entire regular season. They are both here in week number 14, and this is a big one. James Madison and New Hampshire, they are set to kick off against each other shortly, but New Hampshire, they just came off of a very shocking loss to Norfolk State of all teams, one of the worst teams in the conference. So New Hampshire, even though they lost one game the entire season, they're down to number 17 in the country, so they need to win this game. Big caveat in this game, though, is that Himes Heimlin, he's a Heisman frontrunner for the season number 6. He's actually suspended for the first half, though, because of breaking team rules. So Grayson Spinner, he is going to be the starting quarterback at least for the first half of this game. But what doesn't help your backup quarterback is when you fumble the football on special teams. New Hampshire will take advantage of that, drive down the length of the field, and Bruno Baggio will get the first points of this game, getting it out to the tight end, and New Hampshire will have a 7-0 lead. Now we'll get a piece of what Grayson Skinner can do here, as Skinner will line up under center as he'll drop back the pass. Has some time to work with. Skinner fires, but it's going to be intercepted, and it's going to be a chance to take this all the way to the crib. Can he be cut? Yes, he does. He gets tripped up inside the 5-yard line. A little bit of NCAA super dive cheese maybe, and that was huge too, because New Hampshire, they cannot punch it into the end zone, so they only get a field goal out of that. That was a 4-point swing, keeping up that effort right there. So the New Hampshire Wildcats with a 10-0 lead, as Grayson Skinner tries to get back on track here, but is going to be intercepted yet again. This time, it looks like it's one of the quarters. Could be Otis Grip, could be a different corner. Not too terribly sure, but either way, New Hampshire, they start out in the red zone yet again, and yet they still can't find the end zone in spite of all that. They have to settle for yet another field goal. Ash Young, thankfully, he's one of your guys' customs, by the way. He's feeling himself, at least in this one. But New Hampshire having a hard time closing the door, as they're only up 13-0, as Skinner again throws to the left-hand side. And Skinner, I mean, there's no other way to say this. He's straight up sucking right now. He is not having a good game. That is why he is the backup quarterback, and I hate to say this, I won't say whose custom it is, but it is a custom guy, right? You know who it is. If it's your guy, you know, burn him, right? It's been that bad. Burn the whole performance. But James Madison does have a chance to finally score some points with 4:16 left to play in the second quarter of action, as Skinner will drop back the pass. He'll throw to the left-hand side, breaks the tackle, and finally James Madison will get on the scoreboard. 16-7 is your score, but then Skinner on the next drive Well, he'll throw yet another interception. Almost takes it all the way back. Looks like he is going to with a for a split second. But then also does end up coming back. That running back's playing very good, doing a very good effort day. Saving 2 touchdowns possibly. As Ash Young has to come out once again. Has to kick yet another field goal. But Ash Young, he's feeling it today. He's on fire. Hits that one. I believe that was from 45 yards. So not an easy kick to make. So without Heinz Heimlin in the game, that makes it a 19-7 game. But then Heinz Heimlin comes back. He's off that suspension for breaking team rules. And that James Madison offense starts to find a groove. First drive, Heinz Heimlin leads them down the field. Gets it to just a 5-point game. And then Bruno Baggio throws an interception out to Kevin Mitchell. So now James Madison, after looking like they were just firmly dominated in that first half, well, they had a chance to take the lead. They don't do that, but they at least get some more points as another custom kicker, Alexander Vermov, he hits that from a pretty decent distance there. So now the Wildcats only up by 2 points as Baggio trying to throw over the middle of the field, but it's going to be intercepted. And James Madison starting with the football at the 19-yard line. A chance to take the lead. 3rd and goal from the 6-yard line. Hines drops back, got some time, fires, and finds his receiver, DeMarcus Pride. Thought about doing some snow angels, but no snow here, at least yet, here in the state of New Hampshire. It's now 28-19 lead as the Wildcats in some trouble right now. And sure enough, this might be the bailout. Heinz Island has to go make a tackle there. Lots of turnovers in this game. There was a lot of turnovers. 10 turnovers in total, matter of fact. You know, definitely more turnovers than touchdowns. That's a pretty disgusting thing to look at. But Bruno Baggio does make it a 2-point game. And if they can get this onside kick, they can set themselves up with a chance to win the game. But the onside kick will end up being recovered after all by one of the fullbacks on the hands team. Imagine that. So James Madison, they'll win the game 28-26, and they might be sweating it out here on Selection Sunday, because even though they lose only 2 games in the regular season, not going to a conference championship, and doing so in a conference that really outside of New Hampshire and James Madison and Delaware, it's not a good conference, right? So something to think about there as we now go to the other top 25 matchup, and it's actually in the MAC conference. We got Eastern Michigan taking on the Central Michigan Chippewas. EMU, they are on fire right now. They are undefeated, ranked number 3 in the entire country. I just burped that. Sexy. And they're taking on the Chippewa squad, ranked number 22 in the nation, as Central Michigan has played a top 25 opponent. They lost to the New Hampshire team that just lost to James Madison in that game that you just saw. This is a must-win game for Central Michigan. On the bubble right now. Could use this win to bolster up that resume, but this is not how you want to do it. Giving up, what is that? A 84-yard touchdown. You hate to see it. So the Chippewas are down 7-0, but a direct snap to the tailback. It's going to take it down the sideline, and it's going to be taking it into the end zone. Touchdown, Chippewas. And it's all knotted up at 7 apiece. And matter of fact, Central Michigan, they will eventually take the lead. Very exciting game here early on. Does have the potential to be one of the more exciting games that we watch here in the year number 6 regular season. His quarterback is in the shotgun formation, and he'll have all the time in the world. I could have made myself a sandwich with that kind of protection, as that will give another touchdown to the Eastern Michigan Eagles. Now all knotted up at 14 apiece. Could go in either direction. Heisman quarterback throws to the left-hand side and throws a big-time bomb. And the Chippewas are back ahead once more. 21-14 is your score, and they also have a chance to hold them out here on the goal line, but it looks like Eastern Michigan will find the end zone yet again. All knotted up at 21 apiece, but Quarterback has one more chance to actually get more points on the board, and they do. This is turning into a shootout unless this man can get him from behind, and it looks like he does not have the foot speed to get it done. That's an 89-yard touchdown pass. So 28-21 is your score. And now we jump into that second half of action here. Chippewas will receive the kickoff as they'll try to win this game down by 7. But that's not how you want to start a half. If you're trying to win a top 25 matchup, turning the football over at this time of the game could mean the Eagles could start running away with it. And that's a way to do that. 35-21 now your score. It's a 2-possession game officially. As now, number 6 drops back, looks over the middle of the field, throws yet another interception. And it starts to feel like one of those games where for the Chippewas, it's really starting to slip away. And they're in the danger zone right now. Fourth quarter, down by 2 scores. Direct snap to the tailback, takes it all the way into the end zone. Touchdown, Eastern Michigan, 42-21. As EMU just running away with it right now. Desperation time for the Chippewas, but it looks like in the second half they are just going to completely be shut down in this ball game, and a little bit of icing on the cake as EMU is going to try to run out the rest of his clock. Well, they decide to go get some style points, because style points, that's like the only sport in college sports where style points actually matter in college football. Eastern Michigan wins 49-21, and it's a big win for the Eagles. But in week number 14, we did see many of your premier programs in the FCS play their final game of the season. For example, we see the CATAMOUNTS finish 10-1 as they beat Omaha 41-19, as Patrick Kennedy was able to rack up a dozen tackles in the game. In addition, we see the Skyhawks finish 9-2 after a 34-23 win over the Rhode Island Rams. Robinson goes off on the Rams secondary with 175 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. In the meantime, the Yale Bulldogs, they finish crazy for Ivy League squad. They finished 10-1 thanks to a 45-21 win over Florida A&M. Whitlock threw for 350 yards and 2 touchdowns. As for the Akron Zips, they go into conference championship weekend with a lot of momentum as they garner a 24-10 win over the Gordon Flashes. As for Sacramento State, they will finish the year strong as they win against Detroit Trojans 45-17. Paris Hodge with 143 yards on the ground, but also had 4 total touchdowns on the day. However, a big wrinkle was just thrown into the FCS playoff race as North Texas, who does not get an automatic bid from the Sun Belt does not have AQ bids, they lose to North Dakota 24-19, and that's a really tough loss to take this late in the season with little room to spare. As for the Montana Grizzlies, they have no problem dispatching Villanova 42-3. Mario Matthews, the former #1 recruit in high school football, he had 4 total touchdowns in this game. As for Portland State, they will also finish the year 8-3 thanks to a 38-26 victory over the UMass Minutemen. Mohammed carried the ball 17 times for 83 yards and a couple of touchdowns. As for Nicholls State, they should finish in the top 25 as they take down the Citadel 24-21 on the road. Jason Washington had 5 catches that went for 72 yards and 2 touchdowns. As for Northwestern State, they actually ended up playing a 12th game. I did not realize that, but they beat the Elon Phoenix in conference play 30-29 as Jeremiah Hody was fantastic in a game that they needed to win. But Alabama State tries to make a case for themselves to get into the FCS playoffs, and this is one way to do that, blowing out Jackson State by 30 points. The Hornets, however, will need some outside help to get into the playoffs this year. As for Eastern Illinois, they also get into the top 25. They win 34-24. That makes the Panthers at least in that bubble conversation in terms of FCS playoff implications. Also, Northeastern having a nice season. They finished the year 7-4. And then in week number 15, we didn't really have too many games happening. Actually, we only had 2 games that happened. Rhode Island and Morgan State had their annual get-together late in the season, and Morgan State does come out on top, winning 36-20. But the more notable game that did end up happening in week number 15 was North Dakota State. They played against UMass and the Bison win 21-6. That means they will finish with a 9-2 overall record with a pretty good resume for the FCS playoffs. So we made it through the entirety of the regular season, and now this is what your top 25 is looking like as we go into Conference Championship Weekend. In Conference Championship Weekend, we have Southeast Missouri State. They are number 1 in the country. They also have the automatic bid from the Ohio Valley Conference. Following Southeast Missouri State, we got San Diego State, who won the automatic bid for the Mountain West, and they should also get that first round bye. Eastern Michigan, they will be playing against Akron in the MAC Championship, followed by James Madison at 4, Northern Arizona at 5, Akron at number 6. Like I said earlier, they'll be playing against the Eagles of Eastern Michigan. The Demons at number 7, they will be competing for the SEC Championship game. We also have Delaware at number 8. They'll be playing against James Madison for that CAA title. Outside of the first round buys, we got Tennessee Martin, who could sneak in and get a first round bye. They're right on the outside of that threshold. Western Carolina at number 10, who could play their way in as they'll take on Grambling State. North Dakota State already has an automatic bid from the Big Sky Conference at number 11. And at number 12, we have the Georgia Southern Eagles. These should be back in the FCS playoffs. But now we get to the second half of the top 25. We got Portland State at number 13. At 14 is the Montana Grizzlies, followed by the UNLV Rebels at number 15. They had a great season as well. After that is Grambling State at 16, looking for their first FCS playoff appearance and trying to solidify that with a win against the Catamounts. At 17 is Sacramento State. 18 is Eastern Kentucky. They came on hot at the right time. Yale at number 19. They got the Ivy League title in their hands, and they'll be looking to get a pretty decent seed, at least the highest seed that we've seen from any Ivy League team in this series. At number 20 is New Hampshire. They are on bye, and starting with number 20, these are some teams that could very much be on the bubble. San Jose State is an exception. They're already in with that automatic bid from the WILDCATS Conference. Undefeated in conference play, so shout out to the Spartans for that. Chattanooga at number 22. Nicholls State at 23. And the two teams that most recently entered the top 25, EIU at 24 and New Mexico State at number 25 in the country. As for some teams that are also receiving votes right now, got Alabama State with 170. We also have South Carolina State and Sam Houston State also receiving votes as well. So that takes us into Conference Championship Weekend. And what we'll do with Conference Championship Weekend, not only will I show most of the Conference Championship games, if I don't show a particular game, it will be at least shown as a box score. We'll also have an FBS transfer update. Some of your guys' customs did transfer up to the FBS level, that higher level of Division I football. So we'll check in to see how they're doing in their final home games at their respective schools. But that being said, though, James Madison, they'll be taking on Delaware. That's actually our first conference game that we have. And this is actually a rematch from week number 4. James Madison losing to Delaware, and it was actually a pretty bad loss for the Dukes. However, James Madison has not lost since then, and they will come in as a slightly ranked higher team. The winner of this game not only getting the automatic bid from this conference, but they'll also have that first round bye locked in as well. As for the next two conference championship games, we got the SEC championship, that's SoCon Conference. Got Texas State, who somehow snuck in with that 6-5 record. They're going to be looking to make their second FCS playoff appearance in this series in 2 seasons. Well, they'll be taking on a heavily favored Northwestern State squad who's ranked number 7 in the country, and they'll be looking for their first FCS playoff appearance. Demons are probably going to be in, win or lose in this one, but Texas State does need to win if they want to go dancing in the FCS playoffs here in year number 6. And then the other conference championship game that's not a top 25 matchup is the Conference USA Championship. We got the Richmond Spiders taking on the Tulane Green Wave. Richmond has not made the playoffs yet in this series, and if they can win this game against Tulane, they will make their very first FCS playoff appearance. So that'll be a huge accomplishment for the Spiders. They're coming in with a lot of momentum too. They've won their last 3 games. While Tulane is sliding in the opposite direction, they lost their last couple of games themselves. Should be an interesting game to look for in that Conference USA Championship. Then we got the Big 12 Championship that pits Grambling State versus Western Carolina. This is also another one of those matchups where these two teams did actually go up against each other. This was a Week 7 matchup when they were both in the top 25. And Western Carolina did come out on top, but this was also the game where Ray Waddle did end up getting hurt. If Ray Waddle was healthy in this game, look out because he might provide some Cinderella magic. This could be a fun game to watch. Both teams very capable of putting a lot of points up on the scoreboard. Should be a fantastic conference championship to watch, as if Grambling State wins this game, they'll get their first FCS playoff appearance, whereas the Catamounts, if they win, they could find themselves with a first round bye here in year number 6 as the defending national champions. But the last conference championship that we have is arguably going to be one of the most exciting ones. It's Akron versus Eastern Michigan, both in the top 10, both with a chance to clinch a first round bye in the FCS playoffs. Both these teams should be in, but winning this game means they would be able to solidify themselves as a first round bye team, get that extra rest a little bit. Should be one of the more exciting games to watch in the conference championship weekend. It's something that I'm really excited about, even though these two teams are technically not FCS squads. I just like some good old-fashioned football. But that will wrap things up here as we made it all the way through the remainder of the regular season. Next episode, we will have the conference championships as well as having that FBS transfer update. Should be some fun football to watch out for. I hope you guys are excited for it, because if you are, I need you guys to do me a big favor. Smack that like button for me. Hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new to the channel. This is John J Gaming on the mic signing off. Hoping you guys are all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.